Hello, fellow novice researchers. We bring you this presentation, Jill and Kimberly, and we were fairly excited to get assigned the ethnography qualitative research area. Kimberly and I both come from a sociology background, and ethnography is all about sociology because it's about people and studying people and their groups. So, we're kind of passionate about that. So we're excited to talk with you about that today. Um, See all our little people popping up there because it is about people. Um, Ethnography's goal is to describe, analyze, and interpret the culture of a group over times in terms of the group's shared beliefs and behaviors and language. Something very specific and unique about this research type is that the participant observer, which is the researcher as a participant. This is unique in that in most research types, the researcher sits back and calculates and looks at numbers and looks at data, or in qualitative is doing interviews and observations, but this takes it a step further in that the researcher actually participates in what is being studied. So that may mean immersing into a people group or a community group or just in whatever the focus of the study is, the participant observer is the researcher being an active participant in what is being studied. So that is very interesting and makes this ethnography unique. Because the participant observer, the researcher, is involved in observing what is happening and interacting with the participants, it can be a very long time commitment, taking many hours, most often several days, and possibly even years. The sample size is going to be dependent on what is being studied. Most often it's going to be small because you're studying something deeply, or it may be a small area, it may be a small group of people, but it is focused. So the sample size is just going to depend on what the study is about. So the data is collected, as I mentioned, mainly the data is collected by the researcher by actively being involved and participating, observing and participating with the study. Lots of notes are taken as the researcher participates. Also, there can be interviews, focus groups, case studies, and documentary evidence. Yes, that was a mouthful. So it is just dependent on what the study is, but like I said, most often the researcher is involved in what is being studied. Also, there might be some interviews that happen multiple times, maybe 10 times or up to 100 times. Interviews happen because part of this a characteristic of this study is finding patterns and themes that happen, and that may take, again, more time and more than just a one-time observation. It's going to be multiple observations that are happening to collect all of that data. This is not a quick study. So this is also one of the limitations because there are so many observations and interviews being done by people. The meaning that is given to what is being the interviews or the observations, the meaning that is given to those things can vary and make the analysis tricky. As probably many of you have found in your qualitative research presentation preparations is that quantification and statistical analysis is subordinate because so much of it is done. It's not just numbers data that you can find the answer to and put a statistic to it. It is evaluations and interpretation of those interviews and observations. Another thing that I'm sure you all have found in your research is that the validity is low in the qualitative, and as it is with this specifically because there is so much interpretation and necessary or need for lots of observations, and then there's lots of interpreting. So it does allow for low external and internal validity. The aim of ethnography research is not to prove that a particular intervention is going to solve a particular problem, but rather to understand what's going on in a particular setting. So whatever that setting may be, the researcher does not go in just trying to solve a problem, find a solution. It's just to find out, okay, what is happening? What is going on here? And that is what this kind of research is about. We are going to actually look at an example that I found that was interesting to me, maybe because I just like shopping and I like IKEA. So we're going to take a little trip over to a little video on YouTube, because we all love YouTube. And so we're just going to take a second and watch this. It's just an example of a case study that was done. And I just thought it was a good view. So let's take a look.
Interior designers must be comprehensively equipped to create supportive, responsive environments. From hospitality to workplace and healthcare to retail, the demand for multidisciplinary solutions is formidable. Like William White did in The Social Life of Small Urban Spaces, we observed IKEA shoppers and mapped their meanderings. The biggest secret to IKEA's success is its maze-like spatial organization, designed to obscure a path to the exit. Shoppers meander along a 12-foot wide public street, continually distracted by fully accessorized private rooms to the right and the semi-private salon to the left. IKEA's other secret is the shortcut. We were interested in how many people take the shortcuts and why. The shortcut option allows an out for those who feel a loss of control by being confined to the street, like cutting through an alley. In exercising their freedom of choice and the need to break away from the herd, our study revealed that 40% of IKEA shoppers take the shortcuts.
So I think this is interesting. As a quantitative study, it would be more like, okay, we're trying to find out why people take the shortcut, and this is just in this study, it's saying, oh, do people take the shortcut? How many people do take the shortcut? It's not necessarily. So it's just observing what is happening. The researchers making no attempt to control anything. It's just observing what is happening.
Because shortcuts give people a sense of autonomy. People need to make their own rules in how to use space, proving that user autonomy is essential to successful interior design. Another observation that intrigued us was shoppers' interaction with the merchandise. Who samples what, how do they sample, and for how long?
Again, this isn't something they were expecting to find. It's just they found as they were observing about the shoppers.
People tend to go where other people are. The reason for this is the human act of crowding. We observed that strategically placed product augmented by color, lighting, and pricing attracts the first herd member, and then others follow. Retail strategies designed to attract, engage, and ultimately get shoppers to purchase owe their success to consumer psychology. As the environmental psychologist Paco Underhill says, if we went into the stores only when we needed to buy something, and if once there we bought only what we needed, the economy would collapse. IKEA's environment provides shoppers with just the right sense of belonging, freedom, and safety. We also notice that verbal engagement varies with gender. Men engage in conversation 52% more than women, while women, consumed by spatial interaction, are seriously focused on shopping. How important and
I thought that was another just interesting kind of funny observation that was made in this study.
applicable are the lessons of human behavior? The human-centered approach to design places users' needs first, and good design is ultimately judged by how conducive it is to human experience. Incorporating psychological, behavioral, social, and cultural research methods enables designers to identify strategies by which to create a reciprocal relationship between space and its users.
So now that we got to have our little field trip to YouTube or to IKEA via YouTube, I will say that no money by IKEA was taken or received, and this was just completely for a fun little field trip as we looked at qualitative research. So I thought that was a fun way to look at it and just a good example. In that example, the participant observer, they weren't, well, maybe they were shopping. I think I would have to shop if I was doing my research at IKEA. So that was just an example, and there's my little notification. So that is our presentation on ethnography, and I will admit that I have to think very hard about if I'm saying that correctly. So hopefully throughout the video I did, because Kimberly was very patient with me as I said it so many times. Ethnography, yes. So that is just about the end of our presentation. We do have some references coming up. We found just a little bit of information in our textbook. We found a great site that most of the information came from Gay and Mills and Irish Asian. So that is our presentation, and I hope you all have a great day.